Hi, this is author-philosopher Ronald E. Springer of EthicsUnderground.com here to continue the reading of Moral Armor, Chapter 8, Part 32, False Proverbs. Please hit like and subscribe before we dive in. After a while, cultural trends form to reveal the fear-driven's favorite approaches to impotence. Here are a number of common sayings that have their root in cowardice and have been an endless source of moral irritation for man. There are no absolutes in life, or nothing is certain, versus the vast knowledge of unchanging natural standards discovered by man, every step up the ladder of science and 99% of all human action. You don't have to speak to a nuclear physicist to verify whether or not there are absolutes. Ask anyone with a checking account. The next time you hear this, ask the speaker to go step on a rake a few times to see if he notices a trend. Judge not lest ye be judged versus the coherent identification of a man's adherence to life-furthering principles as well as one's own. Negating the value of judgment is a disastrously stupid anti-concept, implying that thought itself is an act of evil. Jesus meant that men should not judge each other falsely by irrational standards, nothing more. The way this statement is most often used implies that it is immoral to think. If that is so, then the brain is useless. If they declare the brain to be useless, then why respect the content of theirs? If all they can say is Bible this and Bible that, they can't think for themselves. They are followers, not leaders, and can only lead you to your own spiritual demise. When someone says they didn't have the heart to do or say something, it means they're being heartless, and it's true. Gutless too. We don't have to kick someone when they are down, but when they're asking for help, a tactful, objective, emotional discipline is called into action. In practicing conveyance of the pure truth with regard to their state, you grant more than just consideration for their feelings. You communicate belief in their capacity to reach the human stature they seek, and then it directly attributes to yours. In this day and age, at this time, and in this environment, are valid only when drawing a map from where we are to where we want to be. But for the most part, these false claims imply the necessity of compromise with, acceptance, and submission to current levels of corruption while justifying the speaker's passivity to think further, to be honest, or to act. That's old-fashioned. That's out of date, or you have to change with the times. Likewise, lacking the foundation of sound judgment, the untried and new is also not to be trusted. Riding the emotional current of others, what is out of favor with the favor providers is automatically out of favor with him. The truth is that time is irrelevant to the validity of any concept dealing with organic life. Just because a premise was identified 2,500 years ago doesn't make it any more or less valid than a discovery of 5 minutes ago. Sir Isaac Newton's laws of motion still apply, as do what led to their discovery, Aristotle's laws of logic. Axioms are good for all time, regardless of when they are discovered. Likewise, fear-driven premises were wrong 2,000 years ago, are still wrong, and always will be, if you want it bad enough, negatively enough, or just intensely enough. A strong desire is not evil. That is precisely why it is labeled as bad. You have to give something back. Originally a mob custom, this false premise is stretched to stain essential human productivity, implying that working or owning a business is a form of robbery. As a normal civilian, you need give nothing back. With our unnecessary tax burden and subversive moral environment, it's the other way around. Not everyone can be wealthy. In addition to the blatant unwillingness to lift a finger, this statement implies that wealth only falls on the lucky from the outside. Individual human action is the driver of prosperity, as it should be. Everyone can be as wealthy as the effort they are willing to expend. Wealth essentially is a result of personal action, the equivalent of work accomplished. As everyone has their own person as an energy source, it is possible to all. Money is the mass-acknowledged measure of wealth, but the forms of wealth are infinite. In spirit, every chain of knowledge is a form of wealth, as is the effect of every virtuous cause. The feeling of wealth and application is different for every one of us, by attaining satisfaction of what we truly want. A fisherman may desire the latest vessel, or a fleet. Another's enterprise may be the construction of great buildings. Another may imagine a fleet of exotic cars. Still another may desire a beautiful landscape, a clean canvas, and the time and skill to fill it. As long as we remain the source of our dynamic wealth, not a rich spouse or parent, the door to our deepest self-esteem remains open. There is good in the lowest. The fear-stagnated have to look below themselves to feel tall. We, as the self-made, aspire to one day reach our hero's stature. We are always looking up and ahead. The fear-driven always look for value in remote places, excluding wherever it is most obvious. Mining for that minute percentage is only a diversion for the guardianship of what they consider as the overwhelming sum of their being, incompetence and evil. He or she has potential. Everyone has potential. What you should be looking for is kinetic. A body in motion can be turned onto the correct path, but a stationary object requires an enormous effort just to overcome initial friction. Have you ever moved a large piece of furniture alone? The first effort is the hardest, then it slides much more easily. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion, just as still objects tend to stay still. If one's predisposition is to do nothing, you have an uphill battle on your hands. Stagnation is chosen out of fear. Forced into action, the fear-driven look to dig and dive right back into another foxhole. They seek safety, not rewards, which is why they stopped in the first place. Don't kid yourself, they have to get out of the hole alone. Happiness is fleeting. Happiness to them is an unpredictable, unreliable, and inconsistent sense of euphoria whose source cannot be identified, practiced, or maintained. There is a payoff in accepting no solid definition. It wipes out the personal responsibility to uphold the standards that would lure it into their lives as a constant, just like love. A person is a product of his environment. As far as they are concerned, all cures as well as all actions originate outside of them. Yes, your life and character are molded by many causative factors, but you are responsible for managing all of them. Their effect on you is your objective pride or your subjective guilt. Either results from the effort you put forth into the construction of your own value filters. Grow up. They invert their conscious effort to reinforce in themselves and others the futility of man's aspirations, that to grow up is to give up. To stand by convictions is to be cold and cruel. To tell lies is merciful. To be honest is rude. That passion is comical, and comedy is cynical. The attempt to twist these definitions is to fake to themselves that what they gave up wasn't worth reaching anyway, and they veil their true fear by hijacking the virtue of maturity. We all decide what is sufficient to stop us. It is rare to encounter someone who doesn't stoop to the dishonesty of declaring values no longer to be values, once they've given up their pursuit. Loosen up. They want us to loosen up, but notice that we have few, if any, manic tendencies. Why do you think that is? We can bring relaxation to others with our confidence like no one else can, yet we need to relax. What they actually mean is that as one lets one's hair down, we should learn to let our premises down, to loosen our grasp on consciousness. Self-made men are masters of living, so reality is never the subject of their escape. We have it down so well that we can spin our wheels, work hard, be light, be serious, do anything, buy anything, and go anywhere, all driven by our deepest passions in life. Now that's freedom. The barrier they wish to break down is our unwillingness to accept data on faith, which means without passing it through our filter of cognition, and to consider such mindlessness to be virtue. Without a firm grasp on reality and purpose, one cannot and shouldn't be able to relax. Here are a number of other falsehoods as the fear-driven use them today, versus the true moral attributes they covet. Patience is a virtue, versus pushing past barriers to accomplish one's objective. Money is the root of all evil, versus acknowledging the innocent prosperity of voluntary exchange. Speed kills, versus irresponsibility. Man is a creature of circumstance versus self-responsibility. It takes money to make money versus creativity. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven versus the heroic reverence for the wealthy. God-given talents versus tenacious effort. Pride for wealth is the ultimate evil versus self-esteem. Luck versus the earned. Unlucky versus lazy and afraid. No man is an island versus independence. Better to play it safe versus a fully conscious pioneering attitude. We're just insignificant specks of dust versus proper contextual significance. No one can prove anything versus a rational progression of thought. Such statements are driven by the secret desire to see their victims fail, as they did. Their eyes are on the inevitability of falling short and returning to safe harbor, not on making it. The extent to which a man knowingly clings to anti-concepts is the extent to which he fears to live. Let your own understanding of life-furthering standards uncover and weed out the rest. That's all for now. Next up begins the fourth phase of consciousness for spirit murderers and their logical end, penalties. I split these videos up by subject so you'd have a better chance of finding moral armor, and then perhaps go through the whole thing for free. Why? To help create a leader in every life. Sound civilization stair-steps up from sound coherence to sound individual to productive groups of mature individuals. Self-hatred drives fear-driven people in our world to wipe out the individual. So we all need moral armor to protect ourselves and the future of mankind. Click subscribe and leave a thumbs up if you'd like to help wipe out moral confusion fast and make the world a better place.